Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon, I want us to look into the subject of family life. I'm one man who has fallen in love with family life. And there are so many things that are happening in our families. Some are good, some are bad, and we cannot afford to let these things happening without addressing them. There's a lot of issues. At one time, you see a couple that was once happy 5 years ago, and today they are no longer together. Some have already divorced, some are filing for divorce. Have you wondered why divorce rate is so high today in the church? A thing that was foreign in the yesteryears when we were growing up. We could hardly hear of any divorce issues in the church because we understood, or rather our parents, our great-grandparents at that time, and the leaders of that time in the church understood that God hated divorce. But with this background understanding of God hating divorce, I am not trying to build a foundation that condones a violent marriage, and we say because God hates divorce, a person should die in a very abusive relationship. No, that's not what I'm advocating for. But I am speaking with a heart that is so concerned with what is happening today in the church. We gather today to celebrate a marriage. 2-3 years down the line, we hear of a divorce. 2-3 years down the line, people are on separation. And you wonder as to what exactly happened. Where did we go wrong? Or where did the couple go wrong? I may not have all the answers, but I seek to try and discuss some issues that we perhaps need to look into each time when we have a problem in a marriage, so that we avoid divorce, we avoid separation. So this afternoon, allow me to share with you a passage that I read, and it caught my attention, and I really loved it, and I thought maybe it's a quite good idea that we share from this passage. Psalm 127, verse number 1. The psalmist records, and he says, "Except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman worketh but in vain." Except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain. Those who build it. And except the Lord keep the city, the watchman worketh but in vain. A short story. Some few years ago, myself and my wife decided to build a house where one day we can go and sit as we retire. So we looked for a piece of land in a village somewhere, and after getting that piece of land, we contracted one gentleman who had given us a very good quotation. Few months later, a friend visited the same area. The gentleman was my neighbor, and when he was down there, he called me And he said, my brother, I was at your site and I am not very happy with what your builder is doing on site. Please call him, especially um, the ratio, his ratio of one bag of cement to wheelbarrows of building sand. The gentleman says he's not happy. He was not happy about his measurements of the building sand and the cement. So I called the guy to ask him, and the guy said he is using a one bag ratio to 7 wheelbarrows of building sand, one bag of cement to 7 wheelbarrows of building sand. And I immediately knew that the man did not know what he was doing, or he knew what he was doing, but he was doing it on purpose. He was stealing my material, using it somewhere, or stealing my material, selling it, so that at least he can have more money for himself. So I asked the gentleman to stop the house even when it was at a window level. What a waste of money, what a waste of material. Up to this day, that building, I had to leave it like that because I could not continue with it, fearing that by the time when we roof it, if it rains, with the weight of the tiles, the house may collapse because the foundation is weak. The foundation is weak. Now, coming back to our passage, the psalmist says, except the Lord build the house. Allow me to suggest this afternoon that the Lord who builds the house here, we are talking in the context of a marriage setting, that whenever we think of getting married, we need to understand as to whether we do understand the ratio of the bag of cement and the building sand so that this house can stand. If we are going to use a ratio that this builder of mine was using, 1 bag of cement and 7 wheelbarrows of building sand, we know that that house is going to collapse. What do I mean by this, my dear friends? Today, we have so many people who do aspire to get married someday. We have got so many young women who would wish to have their own houses, their own children, their own husbands. Even when they are professionals, they would wish to knock off from work and get home to a family, a warmly home, and enjoy, the presence of their children, enjoy the presence of their husbands or the presence of their wives. Either way, both sides would wish to one day settle down. But here is the challenge that we have today. Many of our young people, when they think of settling down, they look for a person who suits or who fits their own description. She must be a tall young woman. She must be light in complexion. She must have long hair. She must have big eyes like a lollipop. And on the other side, the young girls will also be saying he must be a tall young man, dark in complexion, with a broad chest and a six-pack. He must have a car. He must have a good paying job, or he must have his own business. He must have, servants around him. He must be able to take care of me. He must be able to provide for me. He must be able to do this and that and that. There's nothing wrong in all those things that we are so desirous to have in our life partners. But the problem with all this way of starting a relationship is that we are only looking at what we want, but we are leaving the bigger thing. Where is God in the picture? The psalmist says, except the Lord builds the house. The Lord has to be the foundation of a house. Once God is involved in the picture, whether she comes tall, thin, or she comes short and stout, whether he has got muscles or he does not have muscles, I'm telling you, as long God is involved in the equation, you know you are good to go. We leave the most important part and focus on the temporal things. Because this tall young woman that you so love today, or that you are so desirous of, tall, yellow bone, curvious, with long hair. Have you ever wondered how she will be looking like the next 50, 60 years? The same tall person who was walking with a catwalking style will be walking facing down, bent like this. I'm not saying all tall women will at some point walk bending down. But indeed, we have seen and we see some of them, they come to that. So you see, we are looking at something that is temporary, something that we are going to enjoy for a short period of time, whereby we are working with this woman who is so tall and so light in complexion. She's a yellow bone, and when she is moving, everyone is turning their heads and so forth. Yes, it is okay, but where is God in the picture? The brother has got the six pack that you want, yes. The brother is tall. He is dark in complexion. He has got money that you want. He does have a car that you want. He has all the money that you need. But where is God in all this? For if we leave God out of this whole thing, this man who yesterday he had a six-pack, when he starts developing a parliament like mine, some of you start packing your bags because you think this is not the kind of the man that you married, just because he has changed shape. What about this woman that you married yesterday? And once she has the first child, the second one, the third, she changes shape. What do you do? What do you do? Dear friends, I want to submit to you this evening that shape, beauty, and size, all those things are temporary. In as much as we like them, but there's something that is permanent that we should be concerned about. Spirituality of a person. Is he able to be a husband? Is he able to be a father of my children? In as much as he has so much money, he has got the size of the board that you want. Is he able to invite you to a prayer? Is he able to tell you that it's 7 o'clock or it's 6:30 now, my friend, let us kneel down and pray. Let's call the children. And is he able to say, we cannot start a day without praying? Can he open a verse and share it with you? Can he pray heartily and honestly? Or maybe it's just a matter of you being happy that he has got a car, he has got a job, he has got a broad chest, he has got huge arms. Where is what matters most? Spirituality Can this man be a husband? Can he be a priest in your house? Can he be an example to the children that you are going to raise in this home? These are the things that we need to be looking at. Because it does not matter how much we grow. When we are growing up, whether we become gray-haired people and we start losing shape, what happens with our spirituality? We continue growing and getting connected with the Lord. But our beauty with time fades. The grannies that we are calling grannies today, they were once beautiful ladies in the street somewhere where they were living in their community. They were the most praise singers in church. They were the most beautiful girls whose boys of that time, hearts would beat to a point that one would feel as if the heart is going to jump out of their chest for fear of talking to them because they were so beautiful. But today the beauty is long gone. But if they had Jesus at that time, if they had the Lord in their corner, and they continue to trust the Lord and feed their spirituality continues to grow as well. When beauty is diminishing, their spirituality increases. When you are holding on the temporal things, there are some who are holding on permanent things that matters most. If your house is built on beauty, if your house is built on six-pack, if your house is built on muscles that a man has, if your house is built on the money that he has, the day when he goes broke, you will pack your bags and leave. If your house is not built on spiritual things, the marriage won't last. In a devotional book by Ellen White titled The Faith I Live By, Ellen White writes the following statement. God desired that the earth should be filled with joy and peace. He created man for happiness. God never designed man to be sad. It has never been God's plan that in our homes, in our marriages, in our families, we be sad. God has planned that we be happy always in our families. We may have some challenges, yes, because we are not immune to problems. We are humans. We do have some shortcomings. But the greatest thing that God has so desired for us is that all of us will be happy. We are created for happiness. But many of us, when our spouses make mistakes, we quickly want them to pack their bags and go. Even when Jesus has said, the only sin that qualifies you to send her packing or send him packing is of adultery. We send our spouses packing for things that have got nothing to do with promiscuity. We send them packing for things that have got nothing to do with what Jesus said. You started seeing somebody who looks more beautiful than her. because she is old today. You started seeing somebody who has got a better car. You started seeing somebody who has got better money. You don't want him anymore. Temporal things. That's the unfortunate part. Temporal things. Allow me this afternoon to say to our young people, it is important in life that when you are looking for a life partner, look for a person who is spiritual. Yes, we all want beautiful things. We want handsome men, beautiful women. The Bible is clear about this. All men that I have read about in the Bible that God praises so much, they had beautiful wives. You talk of Jacob, he had a beautiful wife. Of course, Leah had eyes that were looking somehow. But the woman who was of his own choice, she was beautiful. Isaac had a beautiful wife. Abraham, a beautiful wife. All of them, they had beautiful wives. But they were spiritual. Let us correct the mistakes of looking for one side, looking for beauty, and forgetting the important things. My brother and my sister, beauty has its own time. There's a flowery stage. Beauty is seasonal. But there are things that never disappear from a person. It is very important that we seek to build a house with the Lord. Let us allow God to be the one who is guiding us in everything that we do. My understanding that in everything we may desire, let us seek God first. What is God's plan? Have you ever seen many young people who, when they want to get married, they go and marry outside the church, leaving so many girls in the church? Or many young women leaving boys in the church and going to marry outside? Yes, it may appear as if it does not matter today. But believe me, it matters the most. God has not changed. He said it once. If he has not changed that statement, how can we be unequally yoked with the unbeliever? If this text is still standing, that means God does not approve of anything that we so think that it is okay to go by. God created us for happiness. Not that we go about looking for happiness. No, we were created for happiness. From the beginning, God created us for happiness. We need to find people who are going to help us remain happy. People who will understand that even when we are in the midst of problems, we can still remain happy. Even when we no longer have a job, we can remain happy. Even when we no longer have money, we can still remain happy. Even when we have gained weight and the six-pack is long gone, we can still remain happy and committed to one another because the foundation of the house was built by the Lord himself. Ellen White, from the same book, The Faith I Live By, on page 254, paragraph number 2 says, God desires that the families below be a symbol of the great family above. You tell me, how can a family whose head of the house is a drunkard be a symbol of the great family above? How can a family whose mother is a Christian and the father or the husband does not go to church, when the mother says to the children, let us pray, the father says something else? How can this kind of a family be a symbol of a family above? We belittle the plans of God. It has always been in the design and the master plan of God that our families, when many look on our families here on earth, they should see a little heaven. The behavior of the people or of the members of that family should be foretelling that these are children of God. When they've got differences, they know how to address each other. They don't start, barking at each other and tearing each other, exposing each other's nakedness to the world just because they are angry. Furthermore, Ellen White says, let your home be such that Christ can enter it as an abiding guest. Faith I Live By, page 254, paragraph number 5. My question is, can Christ visit and be a guest in your house? Can he be a guest? Okay, maybe Christ is too big. Can angels of heaven be a guest in your house? Can they be guests? With the kind of a family that you have, can they be guests? Furthermore, Ellen White says, angels of heaven often visit the home in which the will of God bears sway. Angels of heaven like visiting homes in whose the government of God is hearkened to. Angels of God like visiting homes where there is peace and tranquility, where there is peace and harmony, where there is love, where there is tolerance for one another, where people are long suffering, where people bear for each other. Angels of God love to visit such homes. My question is, can the heavenly angels visit your home? Can they be guests in your home? In a home where there is animosity, there is always quarreling, there is always noise of fighting, month in, month out, we're changing window panes because we keep on throwing stones on glasses. We keep on fighting on small matters. We go to bed without praying because we are angry with each other. He comes back late from work. We have a problem with that. Why did he come late today? Who was he with? What was he doing? Why did her phone ring at 12 midnight? Who called her? Why did the person on the other side of the phone drop the line the moment when he heard a voice of a man? Such things. People file for divorce. My dear friends, I want to call each one of our attention to be drawn to the Lord first before we can talk about beauty of one another, before we can talk about the muscles that one has, before we can talk about the money that we have, before we can talk about the cars that we have. Let's talk about God. This man that you saw desires to be your husband. This woman that you saw desire to be your wife. Is she God-fearing? Unless the Lord builds the house, they build in vain, those that build it. Let us think upon these words, and may God bless you until we meet next time. Amen.